Have you ever met someone who loves their pet like a human? Who talks to their dog as if it understands every word, who calls their cat their best friend, who mourns their pet's loss as deeply as losing family member? To some, it might look excessive, even strange. But to others, it's one of the purest forms of love they've ever known. Because when people say, "My pet is family," they mean it from the heart. But why? Why do some people love their pets with such deep emotion, sometimes even more than the people around them? Let's explore that. Human relationships are complicated. They come with expectations, misunderstandings, pride, and boundaries. But pets, they love without any of that. They don't care what you look like, what job you have, what mistakes you've made. To them, you are everything. Their world, their comfort, their constant. That kind of love is rare, it's pure, it's steady. Every time your dog runs to greet you, or your cat curls up beside you without a word, you feel something that goes beyond companionship. It's acceptance. Total, unconditional acceptance. And when life feels heavy, that kind of love can feel like a lifeline. Science has an answer for this too. Studies show that when people look into the eyes of their pets, especially dogs, both brains release oxytocin, the same hormone that strengthens the bond between a mother and her baby. That's why pet owners often describe their animals as their children. It's not just emotional, it's biological. Our brains recognize that bond as real family love. Even MRI scans reveal that the same areas of the brain that activate when we see loved ones light up when we see our pets. In other words, to our minds and our hearts, the difference between loving a person and loving a pet isn't that big. We live in a world where people are connected online but lonelier than ever in real life. We crave connection, but human relationships are fragile, sometimes hurtful. Pets fill that space in a way that feels safe. They don't judge, they don't argue, they just exist with you. For someone who's been hurt, betrayed, or misunderstood, a pet's love feels like a second chance at trust. That's why therapy animals are used to help people heal from trauma. Why elderly people who live alone often live longer and happier when they have a pet. Because that presence, even silent, can be enough to remind you that you're not alone in the world. We all have moments when words fail, when you can't explain what you're feeling, when no one seems to understand. And then, there's your pet, sitting quietly, watching, listening. You talk to them, not because they'll answer, but because they'll never interrupt. They'll never dismiss your feelings. They'll never tell you you're overreacting. Sometimes that's all a person needs, someone who simply stays. So when people pour their hearts out to their pets, it's not weird at all. It's therapy, silent, safe, and deeply human. When you care for a pet, you step into a rhythm, feeding, walking, cleaning, comforting. It creates purpose, responsibility, and routine. For some people, especially those who live alone or struggle with mental health, that responsibility gives their days structure and meaning. It reminds them they're needed, that their presence matters. A pet depends on you for everything, and that dependency quietly gives you strength. Because when something depends on your love, you learn to keep showing up, even on the hardest days. Pets don't hold grudges. They don't care about mistakes or yesterday's arguments. Every day is a new chance to love and be loved again. In a way, they teach us how to be better humans, to forgive quickly, to love freely, to live in the moment without overthinking. When you look into the eyes of a pet, you're often seeing the reflection of the version of yourself they believe in. The kind, gentle, trustworthy version that maybe you forget exists sometimes. That's why losing a pet hurts so deeply, because it feels like losing a piece of your own goodness. Think about it. They're there when you wake up, when you cry, when you fail, when you start over. They've seen your good days and your worst ones and loved you through both. No human relationship is that steady. People change, grow apart, move on, but pets, they're loyal till their very last breath. That's why their loss cuts so deeply. It's not just an animal you lose. It's a presence that loved you with a kind of purity humans rarely sustain. There's something ancient about the bond between humans and animals. Thousands of years ago, wolves became dogs because we needed each other, for safety, companionship, and survival. That instinct hasn't gone away. Our ancestors relied on animals for emotional balance and daily connection. Today, that same instinct still lives in us. the need to nurture, protect, and bond. So when people love their pets deeply, they're not being too emotional. They're being human, honoring a bond that's been part of our species since the beginning. Human relationships can be fragile, words can be twisted, love can fade, egos can clash. But pets strip love down to its simplest form: presence, trust, warmth, and care. When they greet you after a long day, when they curl up beside you when you're sad, it's not because they expect anything. It's because they feel you. They don't care about your past, your failures, or your flaws. They love you simply because you're you. And maybe that's why it feels so human, because deep down, we all crave that kind of love. Love without fear. Love without conditions. Some of the most powerful connections in life don't need words. You don't have to tell your pet you love them, they already know. You don't need them to speak to understand how they feel, you just feel it. It's a language built on small things: the wag of a tail, the purr in the quiet, the way they follow you from room to room. It's love in its purest form, a love that exists not in what's said but in what's shared. So when you see someone treating their pet like family, they're not exaggerating. They're expressing a kind of love that has carried humanity through centuries, a love built on trust, care, and connection. Pets don't replace people. They remind us what love could look like if we stripped it of pride, fear, and expectation. Because sometimes, the most human love in the world comes from a heartbeat that isn't human at all.